Welcome to this video. I'm going to be talking about a technique that I call reflections. It's really a duplicating process in an image. And so I've been asked to kind of describe it in detail. And so that's what this video is about. Now, before I get to the technical stuff, I did want to discuss sort of why you would want to use this technique. My purpose in doing this video is not to suggest that you duplicate the kind of images I make. You have your own artistic vision, and that it would be pointless to try to make images that look like mine because they wouldn't be your images. But what you want to do is just be able to use this technique, but within your own artistic frame of reference. So let me give you an example of what I mean by an artistic vision. I have two goals in most of my photography. First goal is to create an image that is visually compelling. What that means is it has strong compositional elements. It draws the viewer into the image by having impact. And I think that's every photographer's goal. Second, and this is a little more unusual, I think, my goal is to create an image that is somewhat difficult for the viewer to interpret, at least initially. I have no interest in producing images that the viewer can understand at a glance, they can understand it immediately. I'm much more interested in involving the viewer in the creative process. I want the viewer to have to work at the process, to look at the image and basically say to themselves, what is going on here? It's compelling, it draws them in, but they're not quite sure what's going on with it. And it takes them 3, 4, 5 seconds to work it out until they sort of understand what's happening in the image. I find that to be a really interesting sort of photograph because I think it gives pleasure to the viewer. I think it's a pleasurable experience to initially not understand what's going on in an image and then work it out, figure it out, to engage their brain in interpreting the image. And so that's my artistic vision in a nutshell. I really enjoy engaging or involving the viewer in the artistic process. So that said, that may well not be anything like your creative vision, but you might be able to use this technique that I'm going to show you to make the kind of images that you want to make. So that said, let's move into Photoshop and we'll see how this technique works. So here we have the image that I'm going to be playing with today. As you can see, it's a photo I took in a church. It's not a terribly exciting image in and of itself, but it does have some interesting features that are going to make it a good candidate for this reflections method. Notice that it has very strong leading lines. It's got great texture in this tile, nice texture in the pews, and it's got a very strong vanishing point. So this is a great candidate. So let me show you the process. We're starting just with this image. If you go over here to the layers panel, I'm going to go ahead and duplicate that layer by dragging it down to the add layer button. And so that's my starting point. And what I want to do is here, let me turn that circle off. What I want to do is just capture the bottom part of this image. So I have selected the marquee, the rectangular marquee, and what I'm going to do is come down here and drag that up to a point which just kind of feels good to me. This is a judgment call. What I'm looking for is a point where when this is duplicated and they meet, it will look kind of interesting and nice. Let me go ahead and just sort of select this here. For example, let me zoom in here. Notice how I've caught this curved corner right at the selection point. That's going to give me, when I'm done, a nice triangular shape. So that's the kind of thing to look for. The other thing I was looking at was these pillars, and so I wanted to get in between the these elements on the pillars. So there's the portion of the image that I want to duplicate. So I'm going to go up here to edit and copy, or I could have just used the key Control C. And then I'm going to paste it, or Control V. And you'll notice what's happened is a new layer has been created, which just has the bottom part. And so if I add the background, doesn't look like I've done anything. But now what I want to do is reverse this layer, flip it vertically. Now, in order to do the flipping, we do not want to use the vertical or image rotation module under image, because we don't want to do this to the entire image. We want to just limit it to that layer. So under edit, transform, I'm going to flip vertical. And you can see that that layer has now been flipped. Now I'm going to move over here to the move tool. And I'm just going to move this upward until it gets to the point that it matches the lower image. Now, Photoshop kind of gives you some help. You notice the little purple or violet indicators on the sides and the center. That's telling me that I've exactly lined it up horizontally, but I'm not quite done with the vertical. So it's not really helping me with that. So there we go. Now let's see what we've got. Now we've got some sort of line here. That doesn't look right. No, that's just an artifact of the display. Now you notice that I've got that element that I expected. Now one of the things you want to look for is whether you have any discontinuities. So you notice this is the bottom of the candlestick that's now looks like a bar. So you don't want the there to be any discontinuities here. And you notice that that looks like it's totally smooth and connected. If it wasn't, if this was not, if I hadn't done such a good job of connecting it, you might want to use a function called nudging, where you press and hold the control key and then use the directional arrows. So for example, I'm going to nudge to the left. And now look at what's happened. That candlestick is offset. And one of the things I try to be careful of in creating these images is I want to be absolutely perfect in lining it up, because I don't want anyone to be able to see any discontinuities, any jagged edges there that I've been careless in lining these up. So I'm going to nudge that back to the right. There we go. I might nudge it down just a bit. Now, I think I had it in exactly the right spot. Okay, so now we have created this duplicated image. And but we've got some extra image up here. Because I selected less than half of the image to duplicate, we ended up with extra. If we had selected more than half, then before we flipped it and moved it, we would have wanted to expand the canvas up here under image, canvas size, and you can just increase the amount of canvas. Give yourself a little more real estate to work with. But what I want to do is eliminate this up here. So I'm going to click on the crop tool and come down here and crop it. But it looks like I didn't crop it quite enough. I'm going to zoom in and make a little finer crop there. There we go. And now what we've got is the basic image that is now time to do some post-processing on. Now, if you look over here in the layers panel, this is still made up of two separate layers. The top layer, which is the reversed layer, and then the bottom, which is actually the original image. So I want to flatten those two and create a new layer. So I'm going to hold down the Control, Alt, and Shift keys and hit E as in electric, and that creates a flattened new layer. So I don't need these layers below. And now what's left is just normal photo processing. Looking at this image, it does not look to me like the color is helping us to any great degree. So I'm inclined to make this a black and white image because I don't think those colors are helping. So I'm going to go to Filter and my Nik, my set of Nik filters, and open Silver Efex Pro. And there it is. And so what I'm looking for here is something which, one of the presets, which is interesting and enhances the image. One of the ones I like is number 15, the full dynamic. And that looks pretty good. You notice I've got a split screen on Silver Efex so that I can see the original and then the modified image. Let's go down and see what else there are. That's a little too bright. That's a high key. Full contrast, not bad. But I'm thinking that the full dynamic is the way to go. I'm also thinking about some of these filters. I'm afraid I'm going off screen here. But I don't know that the red is really helping me much. So I'm just going to stick with that. All right, so I'm ready to go. I select that and then let Silver Efex Pro do its magic. And there we go. There's our black and white image. Now, looking up here at the histogram, clearly we have some highs that we're not accessing in the tonal range, and also some blacks that we're not accessing. So we really want to open up an adjustment layer. I'm going to open up a levels layer, and I'm just going to, actually I'll clip that. I'm just going to bring this down to the point where we've got our first pixels on the right-hand side, and I'll bring the blacks in just a bit. And then I think I may just see if I want to darken it just a bit, but I don't think so. I think it's pretty good. So take a look at the difference. This is a without the adjustment layer, and this is with the adjustment layer where we have an image that goes across all tonal ranges. So let me make that a little bigger. So we're just about done. One thing that's lacking is, or two things, but the first one is that I like to turn these 90 degrees. Remember, I'm trying to achieve a goal of having an image that's a little disorienting. And right now, this is not a terribly disorienting image at all. And so I'm going to highlight my top two layers and again, flatten them. And then I'm going to take this newly flattened layer And I'm going to flip it. Actually, I'm going to use the image rotation because I want the entire image to flip. And I'm going to go 90 degrees clockwise. The reason I chose clockwise is that these people in the original image, I want them looking down. I don't want them looking up. And so this gives an illusion of somebody sort of up in the rafters looking down on the image. Now, this is much more what I'm interested in. So what's left is just a little bit of burning to do some vignetting. So I'm just going to come around and just do some standard stuff to an image. The center, I'm going to cool off a little bit, maybe darken the pews just a bit. And I think we're done. So that is the technique. I hope you enjoyed learning about it. Hopefully I didn't go too fast, but you can always rewind the video and take a look at it again. I really appreciate you listening. I had a lot of fun making this video, and I hope you enjoyed watching it. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.